All praises, glory, and honor to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakak Wadash. Double honor to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS. Salutations to my fellow laborers, and shalom to the saints. 2 Corinthians 2:11 says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. And the device that I want to focus in on, I've never heard anyone else define them as a device of the devil. But I mentioned it years ago and I want to bring it up again. And if someone watching this or listening to this knows of some other video that warns about what I'm getting ready to warn about, please put it in the comments. I'd like to check it out. Now, what devices are we referring to? These devices are those handheld infrared thermometer guns. Do not let anyone point those at your head. Do not let anyone point those at your head. I remember during 2020-2021 episode that these handheld thermometer guns became popular as a contactless way of checking people's temperature. And they're going to be making a comeback again with all the different diseases that are coming back online, whether it be hantavirus, bird flu, or Ebola. Okay? And I was always averse to them. I never let anyone point them at my head or my child's head. If they insisted on using it, I would tell them point it at my arm or my hand. It got to a point where I would walk around with my own thermometer and show them the reading on it. But for some reason they were insisting that they use their own thermometer, you know? As if I'm gonna somehow modify a thermometer to give it a low reading because I have a fever and I wanna bypass the screening process. It's so silly. Guess it just goes into a psychological need to have power with these people who are petty tyrants and put in charge of checking people's temperature and these kinds of things. But do not let them point it to your head. One other thing I noticed was that in stores, like when you enter the store, they would have this sanitizing lotion dispenser, and you kind of have to put your hand under something that looks like it could also scan your hand type of thing in order to dispense the liquid gel that's used to sanitize, your hand. Information came out on those sanitizing lotions that show that they are harmful as well and make you more susceptible to disease. But that's another topic. And I said, they are climatizing the people to get their head scanned and their hand scanned. All of this we saw in 2021. Didn't you guys see it too? I remember on one specific occasion, this is something I'm going to share with you now. On one specific occasion, I was taking my son to his school and the security guard came up to the gate and she wanted to check our temperature. And she proceeded to try and point it to my head. And I told her, don't point that thing to my head, in an aggressive tone, And then she wanted to point it to my chest. I said, don't point it to my chest either. And I told her to point it to my arm, and I put my hand out. And so, she did whatever she did. But a few hours from that interaction, when I had came back home, I started having thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, that I knew were not my thoughts. Okay? So I guess the woman just had her finger on the trigger the whole time while she was pointing it. But a few hours later, I had intrusive thoughts. And those thoughts that I had if I can put them into words, were something like, why don't you just give up? Why are you trying to fight against this whole thing? Why don't you just go along with the agenda? Don't you see everyone else is going along with it? What's the big deal? Why don't you go ahead and get vaccinated? And all these other thoughts that came into my head. And I immediately realized that those handheld infrared thermometer guns are not there to simply gauge your temperature, ladies and gentlemen. No, they are there to, among other things, implant thoughts into your cranium, into your brain. Okay? What does Sirach 12:10 say? It says, never trust thine enemy. So if you think for one moment that those infrared thermometer guns are just there to check your temperature, then that means you trust your enemy. Don't say we never did warn you. Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakak Wadash. Double honor to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone. Salutations to my fellow laborers, pushing this truth in all sincerity. And shalom to the saints.